Good morning, fifth graders. Here's a math lesson from the Tasha home to your home. We are going to talk about estimating quotients by finding compatible numbers. So we talked about this in class, and I just want to review it with you all. If we were trying to estimate this quotient, we could think about rounding. That might be your first guess. So let's just look at what would happen if we round and why this method of finding compatible numbers is going to give us a closer answer to the exact answer. So if we were to round to the nearest 100, we would get, hopefully you've already thought of the answer, we would get 2,700. If we were to round to the nearest 1,000, think about what we'd get. 3,000. Okay, so let's look at these two numbers and try to divide by 7. Again, we're estimating here, so this is something we should be able to do without doing long division. We should be able to do this in our head, really. So I want you, I'm going to give you a minute, think about, could you divide this in your head or this in your head? 2,700 divided by 7, does that go in nicely? Or 3,000 divided by 7, does that go in nicely? Think about it for a minute. Hopefully your answer was no. 7 does not divide evenly or nicely into either of these numbers, which is why we use this method of finding compatible numbers. So what we want to do is think about multiples of 7, because we know that if we have a multiple of 7, 7 will divide evenly into it. So let's look at multiples of 7. Okay, I learned a song for these. I won't sing for you because you don't want to hear that, but we learned a song last year, 7, 14. Hopefully you've already been thinking of these numbers, 21, 28, 35, and so on. Okay, why would I do this? These don't seem related to what I'm doing here. But what we want to look at is how many hundreds we have. We are in the 27 hundreds right here. We have 27 100s with this 23 added on. We are going to use the idea of how many hundreds we have to figure out the answer. So now I want you to think about, okay, if we know our multiples of 7, what are the multiples of 700? If 7 is a multiple of 7, what would be the first multiple of 700? It would be 700. The next multiple of 700 would be 1,400 or 1,400. Do you see how we're getting these? The multiples of 700 are just 100 times each of these multiples of 7. The next multiple of 700 is 2,800, 3,500, and so on. But we don't need to keep going, because what we're looking for is which multiple of 700 will give us something close to this number. Hopefully you spotted it. 2,800 or 2,800. Why is this helpful? Well, let's think about this. 2,723 does not round to 2,800, but it's close to 2,800. And why would we care about that? Let's go back up here, because I want to take this rounding part off, since that wasn't helpful for us in this case. We're trying to do this in our head, remember. So if I turn this number into 2,800, because it's close, and then try to divide by 7, why do I like doing that? Hopefully you've figured out why. Because 28 divided by 7 is something we know, that's 4. But now we're not dealing with 28, we're dealing with 2,800. So our answer would be 400. And this is our estimate of 2,723 divided by 7. Okay, here's another example on estimating quotients by using compatible numbers. We're dividing 4,651 by 4. We're trying to do this in our head. So again, just like last time, we're trying to think about what would make this an easy problem. How can we get a good estimate for 4,651 that will be easy to divide by 4? So hopefully, based on the last example, you can see that what we should do, or you remember what we should do, is let's start by thinking about multiples of 4. 4, 2 4s, 3 4s, 4 4s, and so on. Okay, we could be writing for a while. I'm going to skip ahead to 10 4s because we're working with 4600s here, 4651. So let's get up to the higher multiples of 4. So we have 40, 44, 48, 52, and so on. Okay, so how can we use this to help us find a good estimate for this quotient? Well, since we're dealing with multiples of 4, but in the hundreds here, because we're dealing with 4600, let's look at what these bigger numbers are when we put them in the hundreds. So 44 becomes 4400 or 4,400. 48 becomes 4,800 or 4,800. Which of these numbers would I use as my estimate for 4,651? Well, both are divisible by 4, right? We picked them on purpose because they're multiples of 4. So both of these you could evenly divide by 4. So how do I choose which one to use? Well, if you use a number line, it can help. Some of you, this might not help. I am visual, so I like to use things like this. So I'm going to write 4,400 at one end of my number line and 4,800 at the other end of my number line. What would go right in the very middle? Did you figure it out? 4,600. Okay, so let's plot our number 4,651 on the number line. And it would go, I'll use a different color, pretty close here. Well, there's 4,700, so it would go about right here. Hopefully this is helpful because now I can see 4,651. Is it closer to 4,400 or is it closer to 4,800? And when you plot it on a number line, you can see, well, it's on this side of the middle, so it's closer to 4,800. So this 4,800 is a number I'm going to use for my estimate of 4,651 so that I can get a nice number when I divide. For our estimate of 4,651, this is not rounding. If you rounded, you would get something different, depending on if you're rounding to the nearest hundred or the nearest thousand. But we're going to use 4,800 because it is a multiple of 4. And now this is a division problem you should be able to do in your head. If not, here's how I think about it. How many times can you divide 48 by 4? 48 divided by 4 is 12. Since we're dividing 4,800 by 4, our answer wouldn't be 12, it'd be 1,200 or 1,200. So 1,200 is a really good estimate of 4,651 divided by 4. I just want to show you what would have happened if you had rounded. If I had rounded to the nearest hundred, I would have gotten 4,700. If I had rounded to the nearest thousand, what would you get? 5,000. Okay. So even though, yes, you can divide these, they're not as easy to do in your head. This one might be easier to do in your head, and this one gives you 1,250. And this might be the method that some of you might have done on your own initially, but do you see how this is a closer estimate because we are working with a number here that's closer to 4,651. Hopefully that clears it up a little bit. And I'm going to give you one more example that you can do on your own. So take out a piece of paper or a whiteboard if you have one and a pencil and get ready for one example you can do on your own. All right, here's the one I want you to do by yourself. 2,291 divided by 6. Find a compatible number that you can use to estimate this quotient. I want you to pause, do the work, and then come back and we'll go over it together. How'd it go? Hopefully it went well for you all. Hopefully you started by finding multiples of 6. You can really stop there because if you can see what we're working with, we have 2,291, right? So these numbers would be the closest, 18 and 24. If you use the number line, you could have drawn a number line to look at which one would be a better estimate. So if we write 1,800 or 1,800 and 2,400 as the ends of our number line, then we can plot our 2,291. So now I want to plot this number, 2,291. Hopefully you can see, you don't even have to have an exact spot that it goes, because you can tell it's going to be over here, right? 2,291. Somewhere in here. I don't know. Let's put it right there. So why is that helpful? Well, since 2,291 is closer to 2,400 than it is to 1,800, we want to use 2,400 for our estimate. So we're going to divide 2,400 by 6, which should give us 24 divided by 6 is 4, and we're in the hundreds, so 400 is our estimate. Hopefully that went well and that's helpful to you all. I miss you. See you soon.